Hey, you guys, welcome back to our second week on our Sunday devotional series about confidence. This week I'm back at college, so I'm not at home to use my mom's selfie light thing. It's like that circle light, whatever. I just have my desk lamp, but it works, just has a bit of a shadow, but oh well. And at the end of the video, we are also going to do the drawing for the cute little Vera Bradley wallet. I put a bow on it, if you can't tell. And then I will get in touch with the winner at the end of this video and get your address, and I will mail it out to you. So that's that, but that'll be at the end. We're going to start off today by talking about why God wants us to be confident and what that looks like and what He has in store for us. You guys know that verse, Jeremiah 29:11. It's on a lot of graduation cards. I put it on my graduation card, but you hear a ton around graduation time. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a hope and a future." And you hear that verse, and it's kind of comforting. Like, yeah, God's got a plan for me. And He has a good plan. And I think we can take a bit of comfort in that because we know that He has this plan and it gives us an excitement, like, yes, God has big things in store for me. But it's one thing to have that hope and be like, yeah, I'm excited. And then there's another thing to walk in that, to walk confidently into that future that God has planned for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in Judges chapter 7. We're going to look at the life of Gideon a little bit, because he is somebody who God had a plan for but didn't tell him his plan right away, and he had to just do it without knowing what was actually going to be in the future. And it's kind of like we talked about last week. It's important to know and trust God in order to be confident in yourself. It's hard to trust God sometimes, but because Gideon did this, he was rewarded and he found success. And that it takes a lot of confidence in God to do that. So this is in Judges chapter 7. Around this time, Israel, God's chosen people, they were just kind of in a mess. There was lots of turnover, and they just had these judges that would lead them. And some of them were good, some of them were bad. It was just kind of a hot mess. Gideon was one of the good judges. So we're going to look at what he did, because we should look at the good people and learn from them. But we can also learn from the bad people, because we can learn from their mistakes. So Gideon was called by God to take on the Midianites. They're just like a neighboring tribe, I guess. And before he goes to do this, God says, "You have too many people." And I think if I was going to go into battle, I would want as many people as I could. Just, comfort, extra hands. There's strength in numbers, they say. So I think if you were to hear God say, "Oh yeah, you have too many people," it's like going into a sporting event. Like if I was going to run a cross-country meet and the top 7 people score, and God says, "No, you can only take 5 with you." And all the other teams will have 7 people scoring. You have a bit of a disadvantage. You have to do much better with the 5 people you have than everybody else can do with 7. But Gideon had a lot more people than 7. In fact, he had 32,000. Not just 32. 32,000. So God says, "You have too many warriors with you." But here's his reasoning. I think this is interesting. "If I let all of you fight the Midianites, the Israelites will boast to me that they saved themselves by their own strength." So if they're using less people and just relying on God's strength, and they're confident in what God's going to do, they are confident in themselves through God's work, through God's strength. So having to rely on Him can be tough. And that's what God is calling them to do. And so He tells Gideon to tell his people, "Whoever is timid or afraid may leave this mountain and go home." So 22,000 of them went home, leaving only 10,000 who were willing to fight. That's kind of a lot of people that were too timid and afraid. So, you think 10,000, I just lost 22,000. That's enough, right? No. God says, you still have too many. Bring them down to the spring, and I will test them to determine who will go with you and who will not. You have them drink out of a river. I don't know what the significance of that was, but whoever cupped the water with their hands could go, and the ones that just drank out of the stream like dogs couldn't go, I guess. I think it's a weird test, but that's what they did. So God said, with these 300 men, I will rescue you and give you victory over the Midianites. Send all the others home. So Gideon gets this idea that God is going to give him a victory. He doesn't really know how, he doesn't know what it's going to look like, but he's got this big plan in his future. But God's kind of disadvantaged him. He only has 300 people to take with him when he originally had 32,000. It's a huge difference. So he's going on to attack the Midianites with his 300 men. And as they're getting ready, one of his servants starts talking about this dream that he had. He said, I had this dream, and in my dream, a loaf of barley bread came tumbling down into the Midianite camp. It hit a tent, turned it over, and knocked it flat. And his companion answered, your dream can only mean one thing. God has given Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite, victory over Midian and all its allies. So it took Gideon from the point of finding out he was going to have victory to getting to the start of battle, and God gave him a little bit more reassurance. He had to take that step before he realized, oh, he still has a plan for me, and I'm going to be okay. But if Gideon had heard that God said, I'm going to give you victory, but he didn't have confidence in him and he didn't believe him, he would have just stayed at home. He wouldn't have made it to the start of the battle. But when he got to the start of the battle, God gave him a little bit more reassurance, saying, yes, this is going to be okay. I let this guy have this dream, and he is assuring you that you're going to have victory. You're going to crush them like a loaf of bread, apparently. So when Gideon heard that dream, he shouted, get up, for the Lord has given you victory over Midianite hordes. And he divided the men into 3 groups, and they went and attacked. And long story short, they won. But it's just not until they started that God reminded them that, yeah, this is going to be okay. And I think sometimes we get a little scared because that future idea takes so long to get to. I know for me, like, coming to college, it seemed so far away. I didn't know where I was going at first, and then you just have to take that first step of researching schools, and then the next step of visiting schools, and eventually you just start to know where God's calling you to go. But you would never know where God's calling you to go if you never took the first step. And you need to be courageous to do that, and you need to have confidence in yourself and in God that you can do that. So in order to get to those plans that God has for you, you need to have confidence that He's going to get you there. And a lot of times it takes taking that first step to even see another glimpse of that plan, for things to come a little bit more clearly. When I visited Hillsdale, I just knew right away, like, that this is where I'm going to go to school. But if I had never came to the campus, I would have never known. And then once I got to school for like my first day of freshman year, it's like feeling pretty good. Like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm learning a lot, and I really like the people I'm around and things like that. It's just like in that moment you start to know, like, yes, this is God's plan. Like, this is where we're at. And sometimes I think we can either take 2 routes when we think about this plan that God has for us. one is that we get too overwhelmed and too afraid and we don't take the first step. But number two, it could also be like, God has this plan for me and I want to achieve it so bad right now. That's where I'm at. I'm struggling with that a lot. I have all of these plans and things I want to do, like my she shed. I really, really want to build a she shed. And I have lots of plans for that, but we'll talk about that at a later time. But where I'm at right now, I can't put a she shed in my backyard at college. I just don't think the landlord would allow it. Nor do I think I'd be able to get it back home. So, yes, I think God could use this she shed for a lot of good things. But I have to wait to do that. And if I were to do it by myself right now, I would not be waiting for God's plans. I would just be rushing everything and doing it all in my own strength and all according to my own will. And I think that's a little bit about what God was warning Gideon about when he told him, if I let all of you fight the Midianites, the Israelites will boast to me that they saved themselves by their own strength. God has these plans and he's going to use them for his glory. He doesn't want you to be, it's not that he doesn't want you to be proud of what you're doing. It's that we are put on this earth to glorify him. So we need to keep that in mind. It's good to be proud of what you're doing. You should be proud of yourselves. But you can't take all the credit for it. Because God does have these plans and he's working on things for you. And he's wanting to use you. But he can't use you in the right way unless you are taking those first steps and just being confident in what he's calling you to do. So I think that can be a little hard sometimes. But this is why we need to live confident lives, is so that we can get to that future. We can achieve those plans and do those big things and have those victories that God has in store for us. But if we aren't confident enough to be patient enough to do what God is calling, to take those steps, we're going to struggle and we might hit the wrong mark, and it might take us even longer to get back on track to getting to where God is calling us to go. So just staying patient and being confident in what God is calling us to do is super important. And that's why he wants us to be so confident, is because he has these big plans and you can't achieve them unless you're trusting him. And to trust somebody is to be confident in them. And in order for God to use you, you need to be confident in yourself that he will give you the tools to accomplish his mission. So that is why it's important to be confident. And next week, we'll talk a little bit about some of the specific areas of life where we need to be more confident and what it actually looks like in action. Some of the steps you can take and some of the things that God, the specifics of things that God is calling you to do and how that can help you in your life. So now we will do our drawing. I put everybody's names who became a member of Club 412 in this little coffee mug. It's broken. Chance gave it to me when he went out west, and then I was cleaning my room and it fell. But now I can use it as a drawing thing, I guess. So we'll shake it up a little bit. It's super dusty. Okay. And our winner is Cassidy Barrett. So congratulations. I will get your address and mail it out to you. So thank you guys. Feel free to comment any questions you have, any ideas, any other things you want to talk about. Comment below, and you can subscribe to get notifications about when I post videos and any other things, I guess. We will see you guys next week.